It's been a few weeks since the Mario 64 Iceberg topic has hit your recommendations on YouTube. Whilst many have covered this subject, since the popularity of the Iceberg, much more information has come to light thanks to various 4chan and Twitter findings. So this video will take no compromises on information here. We'll be going over all the other Iceberg videos on YouTube so far and collectively piece all the information that may have been missed. We'll also be covering all the new Mario 64 source code leaks that just dropped on the 25th of July 2020. We'll only be going over the basics on this one as there is tons more info and data dropping as we literally speak. If you want a detailed breakdown of that information, hit that like button and let us know in the comments. Again, we're going to be covering every single aspect of the Mario 64 Iceberg here, so be ready. Credits to all footage and findings will be shown in the description down below. Also to note, the Mario 64 Iceberg also covers the gigantic wave of 1995 prototypes. Every copy of Mario 64 is personalized and the Wario Apparition, so don't worry, we'll be going into great depths on these as well. So let's get right into it. Real 2401, possibly one of the earliest tales or theories surrounding Super Mario 64, originating all the way to the same year the game was released. IGN and N64.net had a dispute over Luigi being in the game, with IGN even putting a $100 bounty up for grabs to reveal how to unlock him. Many focused on the signpost in the back courtyard of Peach's castle for proof, as it was first theorized to read L is real 2401. Many assumed this to be a clue to unlock Luigi. It honestly wasn't far-fetched, as the Japanese strategy guide interview once translated showed Miyamoto mentioning that Luigi was already programmed into the game, and there was code proving this, but his model and functionality was stripped out as late as February 1996, no more than 4 months before the game hit the shelves. As we were literally putting this video together, the Super Mario 64 official source code leaks that were just dropped on the 25th of July 2020 shows a model of Luigi that was finally pieced together by fans. This is still an ongoing project as this video goes live, but we should be expecting all the functionality Nintendo coded for Luigi to be uncovered and restored. Developer K's Emmanuel actually restored this code and allowed you to play Luigi in split screen mode. The original dream the developers wanted was finally playable. John Riggs also posted gameplay of the mod directly from an N64 without any emulation or lag. But it doesn't end there. A letter from Nintendo themselves stating that the developers left a sign in there as a joke, with Nintendo actually stating the theory as L is real. But finally, L is real 2401 was actually a huge misreading for years. Many expected it to read an eternal star or a secret star lies here. The latter could have been more convincing actually, as in Super Mario Odyssey, throwing your cap on the star above the sign does reveal a collectible star. However, Reddit user Ickgallus recreates the texture compression with the Mario 64 font and shows that the text is indeed Eternal Star. Besides, the image was also used in The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which also used the same engine as Mario 64. Space World 95 Beta. Space World was very similar to E3, which started in the same year in fact. E3 1995 started earlier than Space World and only mentioned the concept of N64. The first time public playable footage of Mario 64 from the N64 was at Space World 95, much later in the year, and revealing many things that were cut from the game. From old voice clips by Mel Blanc from the Warner Bros. Sound library, a minimap in the top right for every level, changes to Peach's castle's exterior and interior, level design changes, and even more. Whilst there is no official beta ROM out there to download, oh, just a heads up, that is now officially a lie. With the Super Mario 64 official source code being leaked, a ton of alpha and beta prototypes also come along with it that you'll eventually be able to play. There are plenty of Mario 64 beta restoration projects instead, but the one that is currently available to download is by user Shadow Mario, which has some but not all features from the Space World 95 beta. Parallel universes. Parallel universes is a part of how the game actually detects Mario's position. The game checks Mario's position each frame on an integer that can range from -32,768 to +32,767. Why these numbers? Is the highest string that can be held by a 16-bit integer. For those who are not versed in programming, don't worry, this isn't necessarily important. What is important, however, is that when Mario exceeds beyond these numbers, it loops back around to its negative, meaning that Mario overflows to the next tile in any XYZ positionings, which is in fact a parallel universe, a copy of the level except no visual elements, just collision masks for Mario to walk or bounce off. This can go on forever, with infinite maps of the level. I could go into more detail here, but I'm going to suggest Bismuth's video on this. If you want a clear visual representation on how horizontal and vertical parallel universes work, I really suggest this video. Half A-Press. Term coined by Panenkoek 2012 and is commonly used in Mario 64 speedruns in which the user must complete the game in the least amount of A-presses. Button presses are a 3-step process, the button being pressed in, held, and then released. For some speedrunners, this button is held for the entirety and then is never released, indicating that a 0.5 or a 0.75 button press is made. Considered controversial by some, but mechanically and logically makes sense. More on this on Panenkoek's video. Womp's Fortress Tower 1-up. For the top of the iceberg, I gotta say I'm pretty ashamed of not actually knowing about this sooner. After defeating Womp and collecting the first star, a yellowish tower appears for every other star level. Punching the back of this tower on the ground level will reveal a 1-up, something not many casual Mario players are aware of. Bob-omb Battlefield Bridge Hanging. The first bridge you cross in Bob-omb Battlefield is grabbable from underneath. However, this is possible for many other bridges, such as the one to Peach's Castle and the wooden one between the waterbed and Peach's Castle itself. This is also found in the DS version as well. If this was an isolated incident, I would say it was quite obscure and strange. But with my limited knowledge, it definitely feels like this platform is sharing code with other entities that require it. Impossible Coin and Goomba. The Impossible Coin is related to a string of code that spawns 5 coins in a patterned line. There is a total of 7 patterns the developers could choose from, and the reason for this is to save on processing power by spawning a pattern rather than one by one. However, there is only 4 showing in Tiny Huge Island. Panenkoek 2012 did a brilliant video on this, with how the coin ends up being unloaded and uncollectible due to the coin pattern spawning underneath the ground. More on this over at Panenkoek's video. The reason the Impossible Goomba is grouped in with this topic is that they share the same setup as coins. In the level Bowser in the Sky, you can only see 2 Goombas, however the third is unable to fit on the platform and thus falls to the lowest point of the level, the death barrier, making it impossible to kill it. This is another Panenkoek video, so I really recommend just checking that video out as well. Big Boo unused text. There was unused lines used upon entering Big Boo's Haunts level for the first time. The text reads,
"You're mine now. I'll pass right through this wall. Can you do that?"
Whilst there was translations for this in Japanese, English and French, it was left unchanged for German variants of the game. However, it was translated and still remained unused in the Chinese 2003 IQ version of the game. Dancing Flowers, an unused weather effect in Mario 64. The only one used officially for a trickle-down effect was snow. Blizzards was another trickle-down effect that was not used. The others were used for surfaces, much like lava bubbles you see in Lethal Lava Land. The other surface effect was called Flowers, which were these dancing flower animations that should have appeared in levels like Womp's Fortress and Bob-omb Battlefield. Don't become his lunch. A sign near Dory in Hazy Maze Cave states, "A gentle sea dragon lives here. Pound on his back to make him lower his head. Don't become his lunch." This was a quick tutorial on how to navigate Dory to the star in the center island. Whilst the first 2 sentences are correct, the third is not, as it indicates that you could be harmed by Dory, which is untrue. It is likely a feature that was supposed to be added, but wasn't. Mirror Room. An interesting room that reflects Mario and the Lakitu perfectly, and used to access the Snowman Lands level. The mirror room is passable through backwards long jumping glitches, however most of the walls have no collision and the door enters into a completely black room with no collision masks. Interestingly though, it is not a full reflection, as the door in the mirror is not mirrored, as the doorknob can still be seen on the right. Nintendo attempted to hide this by adding an alcove and the small amount of stairs leading up to the mirror. The Mario 64 DS remake added functionality to allow Luigi to pass through the mirror and enter the door on the other side to reveal a star in a completely white room. Spooky. Volcano blocks. Purely an aesthetic for the hot foot it into the volcano star. You see these well-textured blocks right where the star is found. However, the right pole seems to be knocked down. I tried looking more into this as I felt there could be more to it, but there really isn't anything to be found. Blarg. Blarg is an enemy found in Super Mario World and Yoshi's Story, and was intended to be in Mario 64 for Lethal Lava Land. However, the enemies were scrapped, and all that remains is an untextured 3D model of Blarg himself. Activating the minor amount of code associated to him shows him bouncing up and down in the lava at Mario. Colliding with him causes 2 damage. However, the Mario 64 SGI project restored all of this code to the developer's intention and even made him rideable throughout the level. Go check out his project in the description down below. Yoshi's Saddle. After collecting all 120 stars, you're able to use the cannon in the courtyard that can shoot you up to the roof of Peach's castle. There you can find Yoshi, who will give you 99 lives. What is odd is that despite Yoshi is unrideable, his saddle on his back is completely modelled, and even what's more interesting is that the rim of his saddle is supposed to be white. However, the 3D segment of the rim is still coloured red, mostly due to the developer's oversight. Yoshi's saddle is supposed to insinuate that you can mount and ride him, but the game doesn't allow you to. No code is found that allows you to ride Yoshi, but that doesn't stop people creating Game Shark codes that allows you to jump on him and ride him like a Koopa Shell, or other modders like KZ Manuar creating a fully functional rideable Yoshi. The Big Dud. After defeating King Bob-omb in Bob-omb Battlefield, the pink Bob-omb will say, "Thank you, Mario. The big Bob-omb is nothing but a big dud now." His sentence has significance, as the small half-cylindrical section of the mountain with 2 cannonballs rolling up and down the curves now have 3, subtly suggesting that you have killed Bob-omb and he is nothing more than the cannonballs you see surrounding the mountain. Selecting the first star again will remove the 3rd cannonball, strongly proving this theory. Jolly Rogers Bay Vanishing Fog. Definitely an interesting one. After entering Jolly Rogers Bay for the first time, you'll see a thin line of fog above the water, adding to the atmosphere. After collecting any star, re-entering that level removes the fog entirely. Attempting to pick star 1 again does not reveal this fog, and the only way to get this thin layer of mist once more is to completely delete your save file and start over. This is caused by the game checking how many stars you have in the level, and for some reason completely disables the mist when the check finds out you have at least 1 star in this level. Secret Aquarium. A hidden level found in the room of the Jolly Rogers Bay painting. Upon jumping into the black square on the right side of the room, it will teleport you into a room full of water with no air to breathe. Whilst this might seem like an obvious to some, this is potentially a level missed by others. You can also access the aquarium in the Jolly Rogers Bay painting room by backwards long jumping. However, nothing is to be found beyond the glass. E.T. in Pyramid. A square texture found in Shifting Sandland. The letters E.T. can be found within the square texture, possibly referring to the 1982 film E.T. However, this is not the case, as many of the symbols are associated with Yoshi, piranha plants, bullet bills, and more. The symbols for E.T. certainly do look like E.T., but it's a flipped Japanese katakana symbol, which roughly stands for the word is. Please walk quietly in the hallway. Definitely more of a bait subject here. It refers to the strange signpost in the upper floor of Peach's castle that simply asks the user to walk quietly in the hallway. Nothing happens if you're obscenely loud or run about the place. However, many have speculated that this room is a museum of sorts because of the large paintings around the room. Bugged fire texture. When Mario is burnt by fire or lava, a smoke trail is left behind in the path of wherever Mario moves. During the code assembly of Mario 64, developers discovered the texture was bugged, and after 1 line of code, it was fixed to display the texture properly. No one discovered this bug until 20 years after the game was released, making this a pretty significant topic. Yugani's Tunnel. In Jolly Rogers Bay, there was a sea monster called Yugani. Upon coaxing him out of his tunnel, a pathway is viewable past the vines. Many old school rumors suggested there was an extra piece of content beyond the tunnel, but looking at the level through custom software shows a simple, untextured tunnel with nothing more. Mips throwing. In Peach's castle, a rabbit by the name of Mips can be found in the basement section heading towards Lethal Lava Land and Shifting Sandland. You're able to grab him and place him down. However, if by clipping him through the door by the 2 pillars room and diving underwater, you're actually able to throw him. In an interview with Miyamoto, he mentioned that the animations used with Mips and how it was unused, suggesting that if they had another month of development, they would have added the ability to throw him by the ears. Hazy Maze Cave Alcove. In one section of Hazy Maze Cave, there is a gas that can suffocate Mario relatively fast. For some players, it can cause a panic, and thus there are sections of the gas maze with alcoves that Mario can jump up to prevent further damage from the gas, allowing the player to plan their next move. Yellow Cap Switch. In Mario 64, there are 3 switches, red, blue and green, each unlocking a new power-up for Mario, such as the flying cap, invisibility cap and the metal cap in their respective exclamation mark boxes. There was, however, a 4th secret yellow one coded into the game that was eventually went unused. All the yellow exclamation mark boxes were already unlocked, and initially this switch would have unlocked these boxes and would have contained Koopa shells for Mario to use. Ghoul Medal. In Big Boo's haunt, the sign outside the castle reads, "If you walk out here, you deserve a Ghoul Medal." Some old school rumours suggested hidden content to claim a Ghoul Medal, and whilst there was an unused Boo key that could have been gained after defeating King Boo, it was likely a play on words for Gold Medal. This was only found on the English translations, as the Japanese version translates to, "If you leave this mansion in one piece, that would be remarkable," squashing any theories. Broken paintings. In the upper floor of Peach's castle, there is abundance of paintings that are not accessible, some even reused versions of the levels you've already played. The likelihood of this is to make first-time players attempt every painting until they find the Tall Mountain level. One very interesting note on this subject, however, is there are 3 paintings for Tiny Huge Island. The small one taking you to a small version of the map, and the large one taken to the large version. The middle painting is merely decorative. However, in Mario 64 DS, looking at the middle painting at an angle shows a white square behind it. The white squares are used internally by accessible paintings, indicating that the middle painting was once usable but is now left broken. A massive thanks to Super Mario Bros for this find. Jolly Roger's Bay box. In Jolly Roger's Bay, there is a box slowly moving from the back and front of the ship. There are old school rumours suggesting that there was a star inside, but it is completely indestructible, and Mario is unable to break it. The collisions are also very weird, causing anywhere between 1 to 6 damage, functionally not found in any other enemy. A very odd inclusion which suggests the box may have had more usability that the developers left unused. Womp King turns into the castle. In Womp's fortress, the Womp King complains about being walked all over like concrete. After defeating him, a castle is placed where he was once located. Many speculated that he was preventing construction work, but for other horrid suggestions are that his body was used to create the castle, succumbing him to the one thing he hated the most. Truly tragic. Video at a watchable length, we'll be going through these in a more overview viewpoint, whilst not skipping on the details. Wet Dry World Skybox. In Wet Dry World, the skybox used is a photo of Cáceres, a town in Andalusia, Spain. Most textures and skyboxes in Mario 64 are in fact compressed, edited versions of real life areas and photographs, and we'll get back to that later. How Bowser got into the castle with his sub. Within Dire Docks, you can see a hidden underwater lair held by Bowser, with a submarine in the centre. Underwater and against the left side of the room, a metal panel with Bowser's face is seen. In future star missions for this level, the metal panel is gone, and so is the submarine. Entering into the now open area on the left leads you outside Peach's castle. An odd addition, and an annoying one, as it pulls you outside of the level and brings you back to the beginning. This shows how Bowser was able to quickly ambush Peach's castle. Mario enters Wet Dry World early in Got Milk commercial. An American commercial which was sponsored by the DFA, Dairy Farms of America, showed 2 kids playing Mario 64 and were at Wet Dry World with 37 stars. However, this section is bait, as you're able to access Wet Dry World with 31 stars, 30 for the Star Door and 1 from Dire Docks. True locations of painting worlds. Dives into the theory that each world in Mario 64 does exist in the Mario universe in a single point of space-time. While some might confuse this as Mario levels in actual real life, it attains more to the fact that the warp paintings are merely just warps, not to a dreamlike scenario beyond the painting. If a painting for that level was to not exist, the level would still persist and exist in that point in space. Each star mission is also a singular point in time, much like Dai Doc's level where you can see Bowser's submarine before he infiltrates Peach's castle, suggesting that the first star for Dai Docks was in the past. Big Boo's Haunt Forest. When diving into the cage to access Big Boo's haunt, the level's skybox is shrouded with a large, dark forest. Whilst this is just a skybox with no way to access the forest, people pointed out how it doesn't make sense that it's suddenly nighttime when it's always daytime outside of Peach's castle. This is just merely an over-observation of the level's themes juxtaposed to where the level exists in Peach's castle. Zelda 64 beta assets in Wet Dry World. Fun fact, Zelda's Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask were both from the same engine Nintendo created for Mario 64, meaning there were some textures overlapping between both games. Much like the Eternal Star texture showing in Ocarina of Time, some rough door and window textures being used in Wet Dry World's Hidden Village are seen in beta footage for The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Not to mention the promotional footage of Link fighting against a metal version of himself also uses the same metal refraction imagery Metal Mario uses, strengthening the ties between the fact that both of these games use the same engine. Haunted dirt texture. Skyboxes are photographs and original resolution textures, lumping all three of these together in one as they all share the same data. For the haunted dirt texture, this is somewhat of a bait. Some forum messages suggest a face being shown in the stone texture for Bomb Battlefield. However, not all, but most skyboxes and textures are based on real images. Super Mario 64 SGI project developers showed off some of the real images and photographs Nintendo used to compress and loop into a 32x32 or 64x64 image. This also relates to the Wet Dry World skybox subject we touched upon earlier. Removed courses. During development, roughly 32 courses were initially planned for the game. However, only 15 made it into the final version. An extra 8 which were secret courses, totaling to 23 levels. The others were expected to release on the Nintendo 64 DD extension, but with the abysmal sales, it was cancelled. You can see these in detail through a select stage debug in the game. Mario 64 is a Freemason initiation. In December 2018, Twitter user Owen Cyclops broke down the concept that Mario 64 is somewhat related to the Freemasons. The theory covers everything from the checkered marble floor of Peach's castle, the coins being pentacles, and to the owls giving you full sight of the entire level. It was a bit too much to dive in here, almost 50 posts worth of content. However, the theory is a bit of a stretch. Secret Slide Dimensional Rift. Somewhat of a contradiction to previous topics we talked about, but it boils down to the players theorizing that the hidden Peach slide at the beginning of the game cannot physically fit within her castle, indicating that it transports you to a particular dimension. We've already covered that this is what is likely happening, but user Skellux has a video showing how all of Peach's interior rooms would likely fit within the castle, and it's obviously impossible for the castle to contain them all. The end screen. When completing the game, you're greeted with a rendered image of Peach's cake, mentioned at the beginning of the cutscene. However, some players were freaked out by what was looking like an incredibly wide, front-facing drawing of a Yoshi. Whomp's Fortress Interior. This suggests there is some way to access the entire fortress itself in Whomp's Fortress, especially with the idea that the player can break parts of the level, such as the hidden 1-up we mentioned earlier and the Blast Away the Wall star mission. There are ROM hacks that add the full level, but nothing more. Cold Crevasse. There is a sign at the beginning of Cool Mountain. The sign says, warning, Cold Crevasse below, and a broken bridge next to it. Yet crevasses need cracks, and yet there is no other side of the crack to be shown. This is more of a bait subject and just a play on alliteration. Yoshi commits suicide. Another bait subject. People theorize that after speaking to Yoshi and collecting your 99 lives, Yoshi jumps off Peach's castle and disappears, assuming that he has died. Big Boo's Secret Laugh. Boo's laugh is a high-pitched version of Bowser's laugh. These are not separate MP3 files, and in fact it's the game increasing the pitch and speed itself to reserve space in the cartridge. However, there is a very rare chance to hear King Boo play a lower-pitched laugh. Twitch streamer Axaya had this happen to him during one of his 70-star runs.
Whoa, what the fuck? Yo! What? Did anyone just hear that?
120 has a spiritual significance. Tarot cards suggest the number 120 is an angel number. The significance of this is purely religious, that the angel number 120 tells you that everything you put into the universe is of a positive nature. Some players have linked this quote-unquote highest good to Mario's actions in the game. Whilst this is most likely a coincidence, it doesn't take away from what people wish to have faith in. There exists old rumours of a secret village in Rainbow Ride. However, this is only created by the fact there is a small village in Super Smash Bros. Rainbow Ride level, Tower of the Wing Cap true location. Some levels are somewhat interconnected, with Dire Docks taking you back to the pool of water outside Peach's castle, and when you fall out of the hidden level, Winged Mario over the rainbow, you fall from the sky and back into Peach's castle. So some players assume there is also some sort of logic to the location of the hidden level, Tower of the Wing Cap, as there is 5 towers piercing out from the clouds. However, there is no certainty of where the base of these 5 towers are. The best guess is looking at the 1995 patent build photos, which show an incredibly early version of Peach's castle, and a layer of clouds that can be seen shrouding the castle. Perhaps the towers were supposed to be above that cloud. Bob-omb Village. In Nintendo 64's development kit, it shows a modelled man with a sombrero, 3 bomb-ombs and a tree that looks like ones outside Peach's castle. The man with the sombrero was purely a proof of concept for people who wanted to develop on the N64. But some took this picture and assumed some form of cut bomb-omb level. Debug names. Within the debug level select for Mario 64, you can see the beta version of the title screen and obscure, odd names for each of the levels. One of such is Horror Dungeon and Pool Kai, all linked to actual levels in Mario but have a different name. This is likely to shorten the title to fit the debug, but offers some sort of creepy undertones to what levels could have been named. Water Dungeon for Jolly Roger's Bay, Boo Apparition for Big Boo Haunt, and Horror Dungeon for Hazy Maze Cave are all very creepy. Island in the distance. In the skybox of Bomb on Battlefield and Peach's Castle, there are islands in the distance. Remember when you were a kid and you'd look out to those skyboxes and wonder how you could get there? Perhaps a new secret place you've never seen before in the game. That's generally how these theories come about, purely from a childhood wonder. Unfortunately, these are just 2D skyboxes and the islands are not accessible. Lethal Lava Land Painting Fireball. The painting used for Lethal Lava Land shows a realistic fire with an eerie, grinning face within. Most of the paintings in Mario 64 depict what you can expect from the level, and there are a lot of assets in the painting that are in the level. However, with Lethal Lava Land, there is no enemy like this that exists. The enemy does exist in the Mario universe, however, and are the grinning fireballs that drop down on Mario in the final boss for Super Mario World. Ally with info. In Mario 64, the toad in the upper floor of Peach's castle will give you a hint regarding the mirror room to access Snowman Land's level, stating, "In the room with no mirrors, look carefully for anything that isn't reflected in the mirror." However, in the DS version, the toad states to search for an ally with info. The immediate assumption is that Toad is talking about Wario, as you unlock him in the mirror room. However, that can't be the case, as Toad's dialogue changes when you speak to Toad with Wario, but he still mentions ally with info. Others speculate the flower power for Luigi to turn invisible, but that can't make sense either, as it is merely a power-up, and Toad still mentions the ally to everyone else, including Luigi. So, who is this mysterious ally? The course in the Bowser painting. In the first boss room, after collecting 8 power stars, as you walk towards the painting, you slowly see it change from Peach to Bowser. Some speculate that you could bypass the collapsing floor and access the Bowser painting. This has always been a childhood wonder or rumour, and amazing ROM hackers like Greenio have done a wonderful hacks for you to bypass the invisible barrier to reveal extra hidden levels. You see some of these ROM hacks and literally what child me would have dreamed of. Waked up, turned on my N64 and then see it's not real. Wet Dry World Negative Emotional Aura. This one is certainly subjective, but the topic actually branches into 2 sections. The first, more logical, but introduced later into this topic. Numerous older forum posts such as GameFAQs suggesting Wet Dry World was one of the worst levels to play in Mario 64, along with Rainbow Road and Hazy Maze Cave. The level forces the player to interact with water mechanics the most, which can slow progress, alongside having to constantly leave and re-enter water in an arbitrary, unclear level design, which causes very awkward gameplay with a lack of understanding on how to navigate the level. The second reveals the true origins of the story, which lies a much eerier tale, starting with numerous 4chan and creepy gaming posts revolving around Wet Dry World. For some, it's a creepy nature of a claustrophobic level with little charm or theming, only then to find an abandoned, drowned city using textures never found elsewhere. Strengthened by the idea that a skybox is also of a drowned city, what level designers perhaps most likely wanted to achieve some sort of hidden Atlantis ended up being a creepy, hollow husk of a once living village. This spawned numerous theories that Wet Dry World seeped any positivity from the player, and some created spooky edits to the skybox or music used in the level. The Wario Apparition. One of the two most popular segments on this list, the Wario Apparition dates back to May 2020 as theory posts on 4chan. The theories dive into a small percentage chance in the game's code which allows a ghostly figurehead of Wario to appear after collecting the first star from Dire Docks. One particular post from 4chan reads, "The Wario Apparition was created from the subconscious wishes to see Wario himself in Mario 64. This was only present in earlier copies of the game, and whilst visual evidence was lacking, it was due to a quote-unquote those who encountered it in-game can't even describe what it looks like, as many suffer from memory loss or stroke-like symptoms. A manifestation of your own nightmares, blocked from memory by childhood trauma. A simple tale told between children, or something more." That's what many thought, until screenshot evidence started to appear. Wario himself, his head floating, blankly staring down the corridor. Many were captivated. Did this happen to me, some would think? But it wasn't until video footage was released that would catapult this spooky endeavor into the mainstream. The off-pitched, unpleasant music, Wario's voice and the dramatic lighting as the unnerving clacking of Mario's shoes as he runs for his life away from a Wario biting thin air as he closes the gap. Then, nothing. What happened to Mario is knowledge we'll never own ourselves. That is, until someone captures more evidence. The answer to this is simple. It's a hoax. Nothing more than to imply a loss of sanity to people who can't quite remember everything there is to Mario 64. As for the screenshots, nothing more than stills from a focused on fun segment by Nintendo on an E3 panel of May 1996. As for video evidence, merely a handmade animation by YouTube user Bruh. But why did this terrifying story ever see such fandom? Most likely the believability of Wario being able to appear in a Mario game. It certainly wouldn't be the first. Or perhaps how your imagination could picture you witnessing this horror during one of your late night playthroughs. Whichever it may be, the creativity behind the story and the content made as a result is a fascinating one. Metal Mario texture. A slightly less sinister topic. Twitter user Ecumber discovered the source texture for Metal Mario's reflection in an image dump of an SGI indie workstation. Whilst they were not used to develop Mario 64, it was used by N64 developers. Flipping the source image and compressing it into a 64x32 image is identical to the image used by Nintendo in Mario 64, minus some different types of compression. Peach is behind the stained glass window. Despite this being quite low on the Iceberg list, it's actually most likely true. The stained glass window of Peach shown in Peach's castle doesn't match the design fully with the one inside. Whilst you could argue that this is purely based on how light refracts from outside Peach's castle, there is a significant amount of space between both sides of the glass shown in this diagram. Alongside Toad's mentioning that they are stuck within the walls of the castle, or being in a quote-unquote awful prison, it's evident that the ending cutscene shows Peach fade in outside of her glass window, suggesting she was trapped behind it. Brain diagram. On the surface, a brain diagram is helpful, informative, interesting, but in the world of Mario 64, it's far from that. Levels intentionally designed to look like the human brain, perhaps even a fully functioning one. And to support that idea, an eerie, pixelated texture of a brain diagram found in the textures of the game. What was Nintendo's goal here? To emulate something that was never done before? Or something more sinister? The truth? Nothing more than rumours and speculation. Starting on a 4chan forum post in early May and June of 2020, speculating on Wet Dry World's odd level design. Some attempted to link it to brain diagrams found on the web. Others would flat out lie, saying they'd found this texture of a brain hidden deep inside the files. But breathe easy, as none of this is in fact true. The Bowser Room. A hidden level with its access removed late into development. The level consisted of just one room and a window. with Bowser peeking through at the player. Enthusiasts found a way to finally get inside the room, with video evidence supporting their claims. This time, we see more, a peek into Bowser's private life. Pictures of Peach and himself pinned against the wall, drawers and a bookcase, and then, a crash. The video ends, nothing more. But the legitimacy of these claims? Baseless. Everything falls apart from one simple clip. A video from 2017, YouTuber and animator OniNG creates a faked screenshot to fool his friends when he was a child. Nothing more than that. Bowser broke the door. The doors to the front and back of Peach's castle are differently designed, with one in the back using a single rickety oak wood door surrounded by a layer of brown bricks, with the total height and width suspiciously the size of Bowser. The front holds a double regal polished doors surrounded by cobblestone. Some theorize Bowser smashed through the back doors of Peach's castle and had to be remodeled with brown bricks and a temporary single door. The forbidden door. A visible door with no way to access it, but accessing it could lead to either great wonders or death. Theorists say this forbidden door is in a mirror room that we discussed earlier, yet some attain it to the doors in Wet Dry World. User Skullex show us how to access these strange doors in Wet Dry World, finally letting us through to see what secrets these houses hold. For reality, nothing, just empty space, all theories shattered. For the door in the mirror room, that one is quite interesting. YouTuber SwankyBox shows us the other side and explains that the door shown is most likely an out-of-bounds door. But what is that exactly? Swanky demonstrates that with hacking, a door that leads outside of the map, only then to instantly kill you. Perhaps these theories were true after all. Hazy Maze Cave entrance room is a sewer, and Hazy Maze Cave is the castle's septic system. Theorists believe Hazy Maze Cave is the septic system for Peach's castle. It is located at the basement of the castle and is the only warp that leads even lower than the castle itself. The walls to the warp show an odd texture of pipes hooked up against the walls, and the level itself toxic. Putrid gas, boulders of waste, bats and spiders hiding throughout. Whilst we've covered plenty of far-reaching topics in this video, this one bears quite a lot of credibility. The decompilation is censored. A group of developers started a project a few years ago called the Mario 64 Decompilation Project. It had numerous hours of work reverse engineering the unoptimized version of Mario 64, which had only released in Japan and in the US. In July 2019, they had a leak. 65% of the project completely hit the internet. Although there wasn't much playability, almost a year later in May 2020, they did it. A full complete PC port of Mario 64 in source C code. The people behind the project released it out into the wild for all to see, crushing any possibility of future theories, or so they think. Many believe the story doesn't end there, that elements of the game's true nature were stripped out by the decompilation team and censored. A last-ditch effort to preserve conspiracy theories, or was there even more leaked against the team's will? The first Toad you encounter in Peach's castle sets the scene. We're all trapped, he wails. Trapped inside the castle walls, unsettling to say the least. An awful prison, some Toads explain. The first battle against Bowser echoes these words. For me as a child, this haunted me throughout my first playthrough. Nightmares of being absorbed into the wall with no escape. Only a projection remains, much like the Toads you see scattered across the castle, whilst the real ones are trapped within the brick walls of the castle. Whilst a straightforward topic to talk about, the reality of it is true. No theories or speculation here, but the concept of a wall being your prison is daunting, claustrophobic, and unnerving. Silicon Graphics curse. Like many pieces of media in the 90s, most were created with Silicon Graphic workstations. SGI for short. Everything from video games to Jurassic Park was made possible because of these SGI computers. They approached Nintendo to offer their graphical chipsets at a budget for their upcoming N64 console, creating the Reality chip with Nintendo. It allowed the console to surpass any competition in processing power, beating the PSX and the Atari Jaguar CD at a budget. Yet, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. SGI began seeing a sharp decline in profits, market share and stock valuation, coincidentally after Mario 64 being released. Finally seeing bankruptcy in 2009, which is where the Silicon Graphics curse theory spawns from. A coincidence for sure, but one that lets people assume all sorts. Full Omen archives. An interesting tale for sure, as SGI began to decline, an ex-worker at the company leaked insider information and documentation on the functionality of the N64. Whilst not much is known about the leaker, the documentation leaked allowed emulator developers to gain months, if not years, of a head start on emulating the N64 on the PC. A full breakdown of what made the N64 tick, all held within one file, omen.ra. Ominous, for sure, and whilst it gave gigantic strides in development on emulating the console, it was soon stunted and tainted for the very same thing. Legal issues became a concern for emulator developers as the information they had gained was done so illegally. Any evidence of the Omen files being used in their projects could make them liable for damages. Nintendo 64 emulation on PCs look a lot brighter now, a far cry from the Omen archives, but the tale is still shrouded in a menacing premonition. Files that were once something that excelled developers years ahead in emulation, only then to grind it down to a halt and almost killing it. Wriggler's body parts are used in Bowser fights. The yellow cylindrical balls used to create the Wriggler boss in Tiny Huge Island are the same images that surround the arena you use to fight Bowser. Replacing or deleting the images from Bowser's arena does not affect Wriggler in any way. However, that doesn't stop it from being a copied, renamed texture for Wriggler. Enchanted CS88 samples used in soundtrack. A spooky premonition revolving around the Roland SC88, a sound canvas full of samples used for many of the Mario 64 soundtracks. However, some have claimed these samples used evoke a wave of negative emotions, paranoia, headaches, and an unlikely addiction to the game that used these enchanted samples. The internal plexus of the castle, referring to how Peach's castle is bigger on the inside. We've covered this previously in the secret slide dimensional rift topic. Creator of the infamous Mario 64 Iceberg image, Mega X2, went into a bit more detail on this topic when questioned about it, showing inverted, out-of-view screenshots of Peach's castle. Mostly just screenshots of the map models being looked at from the outside in, but also suggesting a creepy concept that Peach's castle is hiding a secret that makes it far larger on the inside. Sequel was cancelled due to temporal leakage. Some theorists believe in the temporal leakage of Mario 64's sequel had something to do with a spiritual leak within Nintendo's company, exposing the true nature of what new Mario game they were working on. As a result, it was cancelled to avoid suspicion. However, the reality is purely based on the fact that the N64 disk drive extension had lack of sales, and thus all games planned for the extension was cancelled. One of those was Mario 64's sequel. Miyamoto stole Mario 64 from Argonaut. During the early stages of the N64's life cycle, developers Argonaut approached Nintendo with a prototype, a new platform/racing game featuring Yoshi, a first for 3D movement and camera controls. They had credibility with Nintendo, as they'd created the Super FX chip for the SNES cartridges and the first Star Fox game alongside it. However, Nintendo did not take them up on the offer. Argonaut continued to finish developing Star Fox 2, only then for it to be completely cancelled by Nintendo right when it was completed. They discovered Nintendo was making Mario 64, which looked incredibly similar to their prototype. They turned their prototype into a full game called Croc: Legend of the Gobbos. However, in light of this, Nintendo had already gained so much time on their new competitor and beat them to release a year before Croc. In an interview with Shack News in 2013, Argonaut founder Jez Sands said, "Miyamoto came up to me at a show afterwards and apologized for not doing the Yoshi game with us, and thanked us for the idea. That felt hollow to me. They canned Star Fox 2 even though it had been finished and beat Croc to market by around a year. Perhaps Mario 64's creators weren't truly Nintendo after all." Shared nightmares. Theories alluding to the idea that most children who play Mario 64 share the same nightmares, which links strongly to the theories of Wario's Apparition, and every copy of Mario 64 is personalized. Childhood traumas from the game erased from memory, only to surface as shared nightmares of what they had discovered in the game. Whilst these were speculations, no actual evidence was found to support these claims. Delicious cake. An unused string of text only seen in a Japanese version of the game that simply says delicious cake and is squeezed in between the text strings, the secret aquarium and castle secret stars. While some speculate that the text should appear at the end of the game with the picture of Peach's cake, very recent leaks of the Mario 64 beta ROMs show Luigi saying this also.
Mamma mia, that's delicious!
Indicating that perhaps this was leftover text for something else we do not know. NFR cartridge differences. NFR, also known as not for retail versions of Mario 64 64, have theorists believe there were major differences in those versions compared to the final versions of the game. While some games do have unused content in their NFR versions, Mario 64's was identical to the final one. The only ones that were somewhat different is the Super Mario 64 Shindo edition, which was released a year later. This version added Rumble Pack support, updates that the Japanese version didn't have compared to the US and EU versions, bug fixes for backwards long jumping, and more. Lavender Town and Polybius was cover-ups for Mario 64, a theory that suggests Nintendo purposely created conspiracies about Lavender Town's music in Pokemon Red, Blue and Green that caused headaches and possible suicide in children, as well as the Polybius arcade game made by the government for hypnotizing testing as an attempt to hide away the true nature of Mario 64. This, fortunately, is a bait subject, as no full evidence can be found or researched on these topics that serve any weight or argument. Every copy of Mario 64 is personalized, the 1995 build. The Wario Apparition, negative auras from Wet Dry World, discovering the Big Boo Key, unlocking Luigi, the Bowser's Room, becoming Dory's Lunch. All these theories string together to one conclusion. Every copy of Mario 64 is unique to every user, and depending on what Mario 64's AI has decided on, you would be lucky or unfortunate enough to experience some of these events in the game. It was a nightmare for playtesters. Flashing textures, loud, haunting, bugged sound effects, strange and unexplained deaths in-game that felt intentional to kill Mario, causing seizures with playtesters alongside horrific, nightmarish hallucinations for those who were less sensitive to the flashes, which in turn caused shared nightmares amongst children playing the final version. Anecdotes from anonymous developers claim that the versions they played were darker in colour, areas covered in mist and fog, that the basement area of the castle was a testing ground for all experimental AI. The playtesters knew they were being tracked to understand the player's cognitive desires and subvert them. One playtester, suffering the unstable nature of the AI, got caught in an endless, looping maze that resulted in leaving him in a crazed state, and when found, was shortly taken to the hospital. For evidence, report cards of people's playtests and their findings, as well as others finding visual evidence in older prototypes of the game. Some would find Luigi hanging in the village of Wet Dry World, leaving an awful negative aura for the player. Others show Yoshi dead after jumping from the top of the castle, an internal plexus of Peach's castle leading Mario to Wario's sleeping dungeon into a completely inverted, evil parallel universe. Is it all starting to make sense now? All these topics we discussed today lead to this point, a build of Mario 64 from July 29th, 1995 that bores all of its secrets, which could never be allowed to see the light of day. Crushed, drowned, haunted, killed. Do not research this build. Do not research this. Hey all, thank you so much for watching. I want to give a massive shout out to Greenio and Glitchy Yellow 64 for their footage in the last section of this video. Their ROM hacks and creepypastas are honestly on another level. Channels to them in the description along with everything else we've credited. This video was a massive project for us, so if you wish to see stuff like this again in the future, please hit that like button and let us know in the comments. You ask, we'll deliver. But for now, I've been Charlie, you've been watching X2, and try to sleep tonight.